Hey guys, welcome to today's video, and today we have part 2 of our video series coming up, which is a rig rundown with Vic Kovacs from Telling Secrets. Hey Vic, great to have you again.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And in this video, the frontman and producer of Telling Secrets is going to tell us all of his secrets about the gear that he used on his record. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, I'm joined now by Vic. Hey Vic, how are you doing? It's amazing to have you here again.
Thanks for having me, Martin.
My pleasure, of course. Sadly just virtually, but hopefully one day we'll meet in real life. It's only a 12-hour time difference, I think, so it's only, I think, 24 hours of travel, so not that big a deal.
We'll make it happen one day, I'm sure.
We will. So, rig rundown. As I said in a previous video, at heart we are all geeks, no? Sound engineers are definitely geeks, musicians are super geeks about their equipment. I love talking about my equipment, and guitarists, I mean, they love discussing everything guitar pickup related and everything. So I'm really keen to introduce everything that you have been using on this record to achieve these sounds. I think there's a lot of precision that went into creating this. So I definitely want to hear how you did the bass, how you recorded the guitars, how everything is so in tune, in time, so heavy, so tight, so precise. What you use for vocals, it's very interesting also. There are so many vocals that you use one mic, multiple. I think everyone wants to know all of these little details. So let's start, I think, with the bass, which is the bass. Let's start with the bass first. What did you use for the bass?
Okay. So for the original demos, for the older songs like Bad Dreams and Fragile, I used a Fender Precision Jazz Hybrid bass. It's actually the Duff McKagan signature bass, and I'll put it on screen now. And it sounds really good. It's just a little bit difficult to keep, in tune when you tune down, to drop B flat or A sharp. So then in the final recordings, we actually switched to Midi Bass, which you can see on the screen now. And I found the Low Key Bass by Solemn Tones, which is great. And so basically I just programmed in the bass part that I played on the real bass in the original ideas, and I chose the DI tone or the DI signal within the plugin, and then for the demos that I sent you as a reference, I put them through the Neural DSP Dark Glass simulator, just to generate some kind of tone, for a reference. And
do we know what that is based on? Do we know what that is modeled on?
I don't. I'm not a bass player. I know nothing about bass. So we'd have to look it up. But, it was great. And it's really nice that it's, that it's in tune. The only difficult thing with stuff like that is if there's pitch bends, which there were. If there's, anything like scrapes or harmonics or anything like that, or if there's slides, because you can program all those things within the plugin, especially slides. There's MIDI commands that you can use, but there's only one sample of a slide. There's a long slide and a short slide, and that's it. So we had to kind of play around with some of the internal logic, pitch bend settings and stuff, but we got there in the end. And I think I actually sent you some real bass slides and bends as well on the real bass. I'm not sure if any of them ended up getting spliced in, but you probably know more about that than I do. But that's how the bass happened.
Very cool. I did use them, yes, and I can imagine that with MIDI. So I'm not a producer, I used to produce, and when I used to produce, it was in the studio recording stuff. But I never programmed a bass, so it must definitely be challenging, and I cannot imagine like doing all the pitch bends and all the nuances that we are able to do as humans, but machines still can't replicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So quickly, I put it on screen here as well, just for people to see. For Oblivion, we have 3 bass tracks. This one, it's all MIDI. This is the first one is the MIDI, what Vic sent to me. We'll talk about the mix later on because I ended up running it through a bit more stuff, or quite a bit more stuff actually. And then, because we still didn't have quite enough low end, I actually asked for the original MIDI file as well, which then I massaged a little bit because some of the notes were too high, others were too low. So I compressed the pitch or the octaves a little bit, shifted everything an octave down, and that ended up becoming basically our sub-bass generator. And then for good measure, I put on another sub-bass generator on top of that. So we used, I think it's just a fingerstyle electric bass, which has a very clean sound, then a bit of EQ and compression, a lot of compression, and then another sub-generator to really get that deep. And yeah, since we're on it on the original bass, which was the sample then, it was a bit too DI-ish. So I ended up using, which is my go-to now, it has been for a while, the THU Slate. Not paid promotion, but I like it, it's very good. With a bit of EQ, which might actually be off. No, it's on. So a bit of EQ running into distortion. You need a lot of distortion on these kind of metal basses. And then another bass face, mostly also for the EQ, the cab sim, and then more EQ. So there's a lot that went into it, I have to say. And then more EQ, compression, sub-generator, multiband. It gets a bit crazy, but we'll do a mix rundown on that, definitely. And then that combined with the sub, which then created the final sound, which I think we can share. It sounds so simple, man. Like, how can this need 2 tracks and a dozen plugins? It's crazy. But I remember doing this and I was like, damn, it's just not getting there. I need something. Like, I was correcting corrections in the end. I was going a bit crazy. I usually strip it back to 0 then, but this is such a complex production that I had to do it. So once we have the bass, when I mix the basses and the guitars usually together because to me they create one big wall of sound, so they have to work together a lot. So tell us about your guitars, your guitar setup, amps, pickups, everything that you can.
Yeah, so I think the biggest or the most secret weapon that I have is an Evertue bridge on my guitar.
Okay.
It's I have it here. I won't play it, but I'll show it on camera. This is show it to both cameras. This is what we're talking about. It's literally a lifeline. I think it's common knowledge by now that these things you can set in different stages. So there's a stage where you can set it up so you can bend a tone or a semitone for each note, or that you can only bend certain strings, or you can set it up in stage 3 where it doesn't bend. You know, you can bend the note, but the bridge will move to adjust the tension back to, you know, its original tension. Which is what I use. So I when it comes to recording guitars, I'll do all of the stuff that needs stability because I play really hard. So, you know, my favorite guitar to actually play is a Les Paul, which I think we spoke about before. But for stuff like this, you know, it's just not going to do it, especially if you're running a dry DI signal into, you know, the interface in the computer. It's so much closer to the source, you know, going to the output. It's just so much closer that you really do pick up any issues, tuning problems, everything. So
what do you mean closer? What do you mean closer?
So I think that I have a theory that if we were to record these songs with actual amped guitars with a microphone up to the cone in an actual amp, I think it would be a bit more forgiving if there were tuning problems, especially if we double or, quad tracked all the rhythm guitars.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure why. It's just, I have tried it, and it does seem like you can get away with more that way. But I think if it's DIs and, you're doing hyper editing, which I showed in one of the other videos that I did, it's you need it to be absolutely precise, especially as we're using Midi Bass, which is perfect in pitch. If there's any difference, you will be able to hear it. So guitar-wise, I use the Ibanez. I think it's the Axion label with the Evertune bridge. It's a slightly longer scale length to a standard guitar. It's 26.5 inches, I believe.
Okay. That's longer than a Strat even?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think.
Wow, okay.
It's not quite a baritone, but it's slightly longer than a standard guitar.
So you get even more tension on the strings, basically. That helps playing heavier,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. I think it does. The Evertune bridge here is just the standard version, and you can get a high tension version, which is a custom version of the bridge, which I don't have. Maybe I will look into it at some point, but yeah, that's the guitar. The funny thing about this guitar is I bought it used. I got it off Reverb, and when I first got it, I absolutely hated how it sounds because it has Fishman pickups in it, and those are active. And I really didn't like how the active pickups sounded at the time because I was used to Les Pauls and have an SG, and I thought the active pickups sounded a bit throaty. But I told one of my guitar tech friends about the guitar, and I asked him, "What's going on? Is there anything I can do? Am I doing something wrong?" Because there's a couple of settings on the guitar which I'll just quickly show you and here.
Yeah, please.
So there's three.
Show to the top cam.
There's three things on the guitar, and I'll point them out. So this one here is the pickup selector. So down is down's the bridge, middle's both, and the top one is just the neck. I always keep it down by the bridge. I never use any of the other ones. Obviously. Then we have a volume knob, of course, and then this little guy here, I think it's a mid boost. I'm not entirely sure, but again, I just keep it down. So I was playing this guitar for weeks. Didn't like how it sounded at all, but it was in tune, so I was happy about that. And then my friend told me about something special. So if we look here, it can do this.
All right.
And I was like, what is that? Turns out you can switch between passive and active pickups.
No way. That's so cool.
So then sometimes for some of the tracks, what I did was I recorded the rhythm guitars with active pickups and then the lead guitars with passive, just so there was a bit of difference. So that if there were any lead or rhythm guitar parts that lived in the same kind of frequencies, they'd be a little bit, more differentiable, so that hopefully it would be a bit easier to, make space for all the guitar parts in the mix. But yeah, that's the guitar. The other thing I do is I put a fret wrap just, past the nut so that you get less resonance where there's rests and stuff in the playing. And that's pretty much it. I use a Mogami cable going into my interface because they're people seem to praise those highly, and I try and keep the cable as short as possible, just for superstition, I suppose. But yeah, that's pretty much the guitar itself. For the demos, again, I use the Neural DSP amp, I have the Nolly version. And in terms of tones, I hate messing around with tones. I think it's a waste of time. So I just use the default factory setting, and then if I come up with a cool riff, I'll know that it's because the riff is cool, as opposed to the tone having had hours and hours put into it to really make sound cool, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Can I quickly ask, what's the tone difference for you when you switch from active to passive?
I think active sounds like it has some sort of extra low mids, some kind of boost in the low mids, and I think passive sounds like it breaks up in the high mids a little bit more in a more traditional way, and I like that. But I do have to say, when you tune down low, probably to drop A sharp, which is what a few of the songs that we did are, where they're tuned. I think the actives definitely come into play because the frequency range of the riffs that you're playing are going to resonate more around the low mids a little bit anyways. So yeah, and then the tone doesn't come across as fizzy as it would.
I see.
So yeah,
that's super cool. That is really, really cool. That's really cool. I didn't know that about the guitar. That's super cool. Quickly then I'll show what we ended up doing on my end. However, I'm not saying I love it, but I do like it, and I do mess around with guitar tone a lot. I'm a bit geekier on that part. I used to own like 2-3 dozen guitar pedals. I used to go on stage with a guitar pedal board that was like a spaceship, basically. I had all sorts of crazy stuff, man. It was just a hobby. I ended up using a Mesa Boogie, as you can see, a triple rectifier, a modern or dual. I don't know. It's a modern US, so I guess it's a dual triple rectifier. Drive quite high up, bass actually back, and this is something that we have to always remember that, and in these genres, we don't actually need that much low end coming from the guitar. We need a healthy amount of it. We have to feel the depth of the guitar. But in especially the American way of producing and mixing, the tight lows come from the bass guitar. From the guitar, we need the presence, we need the mids, and we need thick low mids, and we need enough of the lows to feel a little bit the palm mutes. But even that is going to be supported by the bass guitar. And this is the polar opposite from the UK way of doing things, which is where if you listen to Bring Me the Horizon, like the guitars there, completely different ballpark. I watched some videos with the guy. He uses bass guitar strings on his Les Paul guitars because they are tuning solo and he needs that. And they use bare knuckle pickups, like crazy high output passive pickups to get that sound. True Marshall GCM 800s, which is mind-blowing with tube screamers. So yeah, we have a slightly different approach here. We went for more polished sound, more tight, more precise, because everything in this production was so precise. And I went through every amplifier that has any notable gain in this list here, and ended up, as I almost always do, with the Mesa Boogie. It's just how it is. This amp has something that no other amp has. Cab-wise, I played around a little bit. What I also did was actually I changed the microphone setting between lead guitar and a rhythm guitar. Not just the type, I think, but also the positioning, or maybe just the positioning, because it's enough to shift the resonant frequency a little bit to separate them. And then I actually had an EQ before I went into the amp, so on the DI, which I never thought I would do, but I tried before, after, and I ended up doing this because what DI boxes often do, or especially the inputs of not extremely high-end interfaces, is that they suck the highs out a little bit. So doing this in this way gave me a better presence than trying to boost something after the fact that wasn't there in the first place.
See,
I mean,
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's funny that you
No,
showed.
no.
It's funny that you showed that EQ because I just mentioned that with the active pickups, I thought that there's a little bit more in the low mids, and then there's less in the higher frequencies where it breaks up, and that's exactly what you cut and boosted there.
That's true. Oh my God. I literally undid what you have done. That is so mad. That's mad. But I mean, the proportions are still different, and because of the output of the pickup, the amp reacts differently. So I imagine there's a difference in tightness as well, maybe magnetic pull, I'm not sure. So I can imagine the guitar behaves differently anyway. It might be, it could be a cool thing, mess around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to see. And then on the bass, on the guitar bass, this was after the fact. So this was once the mix was coming along and I noticed, okay, we started having problems between the cymbals and the guitar. So these two had to be notched down. We started getting problems between the guitars and the vocals. So this had to change. Then we started having problems between the snare, kick, and the guitar. So this had to change, and also the bass guitar, I think. So this is not something for the mixers out there watching that I did only by soloing the guitar. Right when I received them, it was something I did over hours of tweaking, going back, drums, guitar, bass, back and forth to make them really sit together. And this was the first EQ curve that I did, actually, which these are very broad, very mellow curves. It's more tone shaping than EQ, actually, so a bit more presence. Here is a little cut and boost trick, cut 400, boost 800, kind of balance each other out. It's a cool little trick on guitars. Little low cut. Multiband, this is control. This is just keeping it super duper tight, especially managing the low end. And then for good measure, I put a limiter on it to chop off anything that sticks out too much, to keep the guitars pocketed in. And we can have a quick listen here. And you would think this is not particularly impressive, and I would completely agree with you. But this is actually the tone that you need in these kind of songs once you add in a bass guitar.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I do notice through the screen recording that there's a significant loss in quality, guys. So I know that this sound, there's a bit of lows missing, just so you know, it's not quite this thin as we hear. So let's move on to the next instrument, or shall we say the most important part of any song, which is the lead vocal. Tell us about your lead vocal recording, setup, microphones, anything that you do as the part of the recording process.
Yeah, so I have to say that the collection of songs varied depending on where I was at the time of recording. Some of the songs were recorded in Jaycen Joshua's studio.
Oh wow! Okay.
And for that we used the C800G, a real 1073, and a real Tube Tech.
Nice.
And yeah, that
Tube
was...
Tech being the CL1B?
Yeah.
Nice.
So that was cool. I didn't set anything up. I just went there, sang, and then I edited the stuff afterwards, and that was pretty crazy. Being there, that was not really nice. But then for some of the other stuff, some of the stuff I did in the UK, so Lullaby, for example, we used a U440, is it 47? Whichever one.
Probably 49 then, I think. Or 87? 87
maybe. It was the... I wish I asked David. I think it was the one that's £20,000 or £30,000. It was the one.
I think M49 or M149.
It was.
Yeah, I think I know which one.
It was cool. It was a Neumann, so it was a crazy microphone. Freddie Mercury and David Bowie used that same microphone, like that microphone,
Wow.
not the same model, like that one, which was pretty
Okay.
surreal. So the running joke in the studio was that if I don't sound good using this, then I'm finished. Nothing will suffice. It was crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, that, to be honest with you, in terms of just the raw, unprocessed vocals, that's the microphone that sounded the most amazing. It had like a 3D, 4D sound. So in terms of what I used myself and what I own, I use a Warm Audio WA8000 mic. I bought that mic because it's supposed to sound similar to the Sony. I don't think it does, but I think it sounds good. So I run the WA8000 into my Apollo Twin, and then in the Apollo I have the 1073, the Neve 1073 preamp, which, to be honest, sometimes I used and sometimes I didn't, depending on what kind of vocals I was going for. But the thing that was always on was the TubeTech CL1B. I also have a TubeTech plug-in there, and both of those are running in unison. So it's, you know, as little latency as possible. And that's it. I that's what I used for the leads. That's what I used for the backing vocals. That's what I used for everything. And the rest of it was just post-production in the workstation. I recorded the vocals in my closet because that was the most dead sound that I could possibly get. I tried bed sheets. I tried nothing in the room. It sounded awful. So, you know, it really just highlights how important it is that your room is dead, or that it sounds good.
Treated, yes, indeed.
And I was just going for as dead as possible so that it gives you more freedom in the mixing stage, and it avoids as many problems as possible. So I did my best with that.
You did really well because, to be honest, I mean, I could hear the differences. I would not have been able to tell what recording is what necessarily. But there were definitely qualitative differences and kind of type differences, but they all were equally dry, which is, of course, hugely appreciated. And yes, for the home recording enthusiasts out there, it is very important to get a really dry, well-controlled room for your vocals and for any other instrument if you're not going for the roomy sound, because the comp filters that are being caused by reflections in a small room, it doesn't matter what kind of microphone you buy. You can take that £20,000 or dollar microphone, put it in that room, and it will sound awful. So I actually say to everyone that everything starts with a well-treated room, mixing especially. In my room, I'm an acoustic engineer myself, actually. So I design my room myself, and my room sounds very good with cheap Yamahas and also my expensive Neumanns. I'm happy to work on either. So it's the room, it's not just the speakers.
Yeah.
In terms of vocals, I find it quite fascinating, and I do notice myself also gravitating a lot towards opto compressors, like the TubeTech, the CL1B, although that's a very modern iteration of an opto compressor. It's like a GOAT kind of thing. It does everything, and it does everything extremely well. And mix-wise, I actually ended up using something similar, the custom opto from Slate. Again, not paid promotion, but this thing rocks. I played with the settings quite a bit. They are a bit different for the leads and the backing vocals. We'll go into deeper detail in a mix breakdown on that. But what is the most amazing? No EQ. There is no EQ necessary apart from cutting the spit on the top. And this is 6 dB per octave. It basically doesn't even qualify as a high cut. And the same on the lows. And that's it. And then running that into the compressor. I always aim for about 10 dB gain reduction. That's when you get the best response out of opto compressors. Most of them, I would say, at least. Standard kind of de-esser. Well, I say standard, but this is a very good, very modern de-esser. Just treating the sibilant areas. My secret weapon is the dynamic EQ, and this one I love a lot because this just takes out resonances. Every voice, I talked about it in millions of videos already. Every voice has a specific resonance that will pop in, that will just sneak in there. And with more compression, as I said in the last video, more compression brings out more problems. So your source material has to be spot on. If you want something to be up here, then it has to be that up here quality. And here we had a strong resonance at 4.8K, which I ended up notching out. So it only takes it out when it appears. I played with the threshold a lot. This factor, basically a ratio knob, yeah, how much should it reduce for every dB of that stuff. Then another EQ, this was after the fact. So this was as I noticed things coming together, gluing together. And I was surprised by myself how aggressive this is, to be honest. I try to avoid these kind of aggressive things, but it was necessary. And then the Pro C on auto vocal, which is just here it's in your face, sir. Like that's there, and no one is gonna question that. You know, it doesn't get any more in your face than that. And this is also what I said in the last video, guys. Here we have a combined about. How much, do you know by any chance, how much gain reduction did you have recording the vocals on the compressor?
I have no idea.
I guess most engineers will go for that between 10-20 dB range on opto compressors, and I can kind of hear it on the recording as well. So let's just assume 10, which is the least anyone would use, I think, with opto compressors on vocal. Then I add another 10 here, another 10-ish here, 6 to 10 here, so let's call it 25 so far, very, very liberally speaking. Then we have a bus compressor and distortion, which also acts a little bit as compression, but nicer harmonic distortion. And then 2 different limiters doing different things. So we added up again, I would say 30 to 40 dB of gain reduction on the vocal. So if there is any issue on the vocal, you will hear it. and in the most case, there wasn't. If there was something, we fixed it. So that's why we did so much back and forth. But yeah.
Eventually. Some of the fixes were thinking of stigma.
Yeah, stigma. Oh, stigma. And yeah, then we had on the lead vocal, on the chorus lead vocal, the only thing changing, everything is pretty much the same. Maybe slight differences in the compression setup. I added actually another layer of tuning, which is interesting because you mentioned that you use both Melodyne and Antares, so auto-tune. Mm-hmm. I added very mellow, oh no, 0. No, sorry, I use this as a doubler. I use this as a doubler on the lead vocal, and then because you went up in pitch, more forceful sound in the chorus, of course, there were 2 resonances that I had to take out, and they shifted as well, so 3.1 and 5.2K respectively. And that's how we created the lead vocal sound in the chorus. The point here is that you want to be able to turn it up loud. So I want to be able to hear it really quiet, so I turn my speakers down a lot. And then I turn it up a lot. My speakers can handle a lot, and my room can handle a lot of sound pressure level before distorting. My ears as well, after a few years of gigging. So I don't want any harshness there. I don't want anyone to be distracted by resonances when they listen to my mixes. Okay, so Vic, we did guitars, we did bass, we did vocals, but of course there is a lot more in a production than that. Drums, I think we should cover in a separate video because there is so much to talk about. Of course, we ended up using Hertz drums, which were kind enough to send me a copy of the software for free. No strings attached as well. Very, very good company. This is not sponsored. They had no expectations other than they wanted me to give an honest opinion, and I did. And we ended up using it on your entire album, actually, and it's just so good. We love it so much. So we'll talk about that in a separate video. So let's talk about another big part of your production, which is synths and sound design elements. So you not only have actual synthesizers playing an important role in your production, but also a lot of impacts, risers. Tell us about them. Tell us how you come up with synth patches, what you use, and the impacts, which play such a huge role.
Yeah. So synths, first disclaimer, I can't play any kind of piano or keyboard or anything. So everything is, drawn in with the Logic pencil that we all know and love. My my go-to for synth patches is Alchemy. It's easy, and to be honest with you, I think the reason it's my go-to is because I used to use Massive a lot. But it's quicker to filter through the different patches on Alchemy. I have something in my mind where I think these are the sounds I have. This is what we're going to go with. And then probably most of the time when I'm writing a song or coming up with an idea is spent trying to get the right synth patch, because I don't understand it as much as I do writing a drum part or obviously a guitar part. It's a very much trial and error for me. Sometimes I go to Alchemy and then I put some kind of plugin from the modulation section in Logic on there as well to switch it up a little bit. But that's basically it. Alchemy is my go-to.
Interesting. And so would you say that you change your songwriting or the part that you want to play based on the sound, or do you have a sound in mind and you try to find something close to it?
I have a sound in mind sometimes when I don't change the song if I can't find something that I need. If I can't find something that I need, let's say it's a vocal or a choral idea or something ambient, then I'll just try and record something on the guitar and make it sound like how I want it to, which I've done before, which takes a lot of plugins, but it works. Or I just use my voice and process that. For this song, in the bridge where there's the Latin choir, that's none of that is a synth. That's all vocal.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, and originally I thought it would be synths, but it's not. It's every single track is a vocal track.
You mean these ones? Huh, that's all you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so cool. So I think maybe the lower ones have the vocal transformer on, so it dips into the octave below, but it's not a synth, it's me.
Very cool.
So yeah, so for synths, that's usually how it goes. I started looking at synths as sort of either a layer of ambience, or in the choruses maybe an extra counter melody, that kind of thing. But the main other things that I use synths or samples for, MIDI instruments, is, like you said, the impacts. And I have 3 go-to things for the impacts and 1 additional tip or something that I always try and do. So the one that says Rise and Hit there is from Contact, and I think it's from Complete Ultimate Native Instruments. It's the plugin that's called Rise and Hit. They have loads and loads and loads of choices for swooshes, lifters, all sorts of things. And usually I go through the stock samples that they have and play around with the levels, so that I can control if I want more bite or more white noise or more low end, like a wind type sound, or something synthetic and harsh. And that changes. The one on your screen there that says New Impact is from a cinematic impact sample pack from Sample Phonics.
Okay.
Which are great. I can't remember which number, but I think we did it might have been this song actually that we did, and I thought the impact sounded really good. So then when I heard that, I changed out the impacts on the other songs before I sent them to you, and I tried to use the same one because it was so just hard hitting. But
let's have a quick listen to it then. Let's show it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
it sounds
What
like,
I like about it is that it has the really big low end, but it also has some presence, so it will cut through, because these impacts are sometimes so hard to mix, man.
yeah,
Like over guitars, kicks, basses.
yeah. I mean, that
tough,
impact
yeah.
sounds like an explosion.
Yeah, it probably was, you know.
Which is cool because I think I first started aiming towards that when I was watching a video of Jordan from, at the time, Bring Me the Horizon, and he was saying that a lot of the sounds that they use for impacts are actually samples of actual explosions.
But they do that, don't they? Bring Me the Horizon. For Parasite Eve, they used actual sample of Balkanic music.
Yeah, yeah,
For the intro.
Yeah.
And that inspired the whole song, for instance. Yeah, they do that a lot. Yeah.
yeah. They do a lot of crazy stuff. I'm not sure if you ended up using it, but when I'm in the production writing stage, the other thing that I do is I take one of the stock Logic sub drops. It's called Subsonic 8, and I let
This one here.
there we go. And and when you layer that with the impact that you just played, I think it sounds huge.
Let's have a look. So we have the subsonic boom. I hope it will be audible. Maybe not. Let's push it up.
It's there.
Yeah, unfortunately here the compression of Zoom really kicks in, so the lows are lost quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it is a sub sound, a slide down. That's the way to describe it. And then with the impact, that's like alien category. But this is a different one. But yeah, the two, yeah, they work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty big stuff.
Yeah. And I think the last thing to mention with these impacts, I'm not sure what the word is, but sometimes you can't quite pick out the pitch that they're hitting on.
Yeah.
So what I do is I pitch both the sub drop and the impact up 2, maybe sometimes 3 octaves to really get the resonant pitch through, so that I can try and make it as close to the root note that I'm hitting with the bass and the guitars, so that when they hit, it hits the same note. And then obviously, so as an example for the nerds out there and the maths people, if I pitch let's say I pitch the samples up 24 semitones, which is 2 octaves from the key of whatever the sample is in, and I pitch it up to 24, and I hear this sounds pretty good at 20 on the transpose bar in Logic on the left there. If it sounds good at 20, then I'll bring it back down to -4, because
The original one. Yeah.
because that will essentially be the same note, just 2 octaves down, and you want it to be down there. So that's what I tried to do for every song. I hope I got it right for the most part, but it sounds really good. I think, in the mix that you did, it sounds really, really amazing. And yeah, I trained myself to feel comfortable with sending you 4 or 5 impact sounds for each song.
Yeah. No, that's mind-blowing, and I mean, this is a ridiculous level of attention to detail, Vic, and that's actually genius, because you are right. Very low notes are often very hard to distinguish from rumbles. You can't take out a pitch immediately. But yeah, if you put it up 2 octaves, then you can definitely tell if it's the right note or not, and then you can split the difference and find where it sounds best. That's crazy. I would have never thought of that.
Sometimes,
That's really cool.
sometimes I can't remember which song, but or which sample rather. But one of the samples, I don't think it was this one, but it was a similar one that had an alien kind of vibe, where the pitch was different in the impact and the tail. So I thought, I like the sample. I don't want to change the sample, but I want the initial impact to be as close to the key of the note as possible. So what I did is I used just the stock Logic pitch shifter plugin, put the semitone on 0, put the mix to 100, turned on the latency comp button or whatever it's called, and shifted the note in Synths to try and get it as close as possible.
But just for the transient part. We'll need this for what I was about to say here. Hang on. Well, yeah, wow, that's crazy level of detail. So just for everyone to grasp it, I think I grasp it. So what you did, let's take this as an example. You take the transient, you like the tail, you like the sustain of the impact, but the transient part of the impact, which is this bit more or less, wasn't quite sitting well in the song. So you took this through a pitch shifter to match it to where it should be, and then spliced it back together with the original tail, which was fine.
Yeah.
My brain is blowing up right now, literally. That's crazy good. That's crazy good. Wow, okay. Yeah, call me impressed. That's insane. That's super cool. So I said this in the last video, and this is the first time I hear about this as well, guys, but this level of attention to detail is crazy, and apparently it's what required to make sure that everything works together, especially with impacts as well. I would have never thought. I would just go through impacts until I find one that I like, eventually getting tired of the process and decide that the song is better without impacts. But this is fantastic. This is amazing what you did. Yeah.
Thanks.
Wow, that's super cool. So yeah, let's just maybe show one section here of the song, if that's cool with you.
Cool.
Just to hear what the impact does. I don't know which part this is, but let's have a listen. Oh yeah, so it comes in with force there. It's on the last gunshot as well. So that's cool. It's needed, and of course after post mastering, this gets a lot bigger and bassier as well. Wow, Vic, I'm seriously impressed by the whole process. This is absolutely fascinating. So much attention to detail. It's truly fascinating. You should definitely produce everyone out there.
Well, you have to serve the work. If I know that you're going to be going to the trouble of putting 5 million EQs on something, then I need to do my part to make sure that your work is verified and everything else sounds as good as it can. So
I appreciate that. Although you didn't know that I was going to do that until you saw it now, showing it to you. So you went through this just by your own motivation, and that's you're showing a great example to producers at home and in studios, to be fair.
Wow.
In proper studios.
Thank
to
you.
do
But
this.
so are you, because you didn't know that I did that with the things either.
But I mean, my job is comparably easy. I just take what you have and I try to make the best sounding version of it. So yes, you lay the groundwork. I add another 10% maybe. But yeah, it has to be there in the first place,
25 at least.
Okay, I take 25. I take 25. But only because I did the drums. So guys, I think we have a takeaway here that the level of attention to detail that went into this project, and which I was actually unaware of, is absolutely fantastic. And I think it really comes to show how much love and dedication you have to put into your own project to make it to make it shine, to make it the best version it can be. Of course, Vic has experience, he's in a very good place, surrounded with people who we can learn from and I guess who support you as well. But you can have that too. You can reach out to people, you can email people. There is good stuff on YouTube, although a lot of that is product placement, as I also say. But of course, you can reach out to me for one-on-one tutoring anytime. That's what I do. I'm happy to help you guys as well. So Vic, I'm blown away. I need some time to digest all of this. Thank you so much for showing us everything that you have gone through to make this record. It's truly mind-blowing. So yes, thank you for being here, and I shall see you in the next video.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.
And guys, in the next video, we will do drums and drums only, because we want to show you really how we created a beast sound with Hertz drums. These guys, amazing software, not paid. They didn't ask any money for me to say this is fantastic. I really like it. So we want to dive deeper into it, show you exactly how it works, what it does, how it sounds, most importantly. So that and more in the next video. So I will see you there, and until then, happy mixing. Bye-bye.
This is a baby